The Joe Rogan Experience.
I've been reading that you are having some great success with your machine finally. It's everything's up and running. Last time we talked, you had yet to implement it actually out in the wild. And now you explain to us what happened. You had some bumps in the beginning, right?
Yes. Yeah. So it's been quite a few years. Finally, something's happening. So we launched our first ocean system from San Francisco in September of last year, and we took it out. And roughly 2 months later, we figured that first of all, it wasn't catching plastic. So what we saw was that the system was moving at roughly the same speed as the plastic. So maybe you just take one step back, the idea and how it works.
Sure.
So of course we have this great Pacific garbage patch between here and Hawaii, twice the size of Texas, 100 million kilos of plastic, doesn't go away by itself. And the idea was to have this artificial coastline that is driven by the forces of the ocean. We put it in there, and the plastic naturally accumulates against it and kind of stays in there, so we can then periodically get it out. Because the big challenge is that although there's a lot of plastic, it's spread out over this vast area. So we first have to concentrate it before we can take it out, because if you were to simply troll the ocean for plastic with boats and nets, it would just take for forever, really. So the idea was to have those artificial coastlines. We deployed the first one, and then what we saw was that somehow the system was moving at the same speed as the plastic. So you can imagine if this is like your Pac-Man, and this is your catch, and is moving at the same speed. It's not going in, and sometimes it did go in, but it went out again.
We got a video of it, what it was doing.
Oh, that's great! Yeah. So this is the basic idea, but it wasn't doing that. So and then we thought, okay, that's all right. We'll learn from it. We'll try and adjust the systems. And then literally exactly a year ago, the system broke into two. And so at the structural failure, forcing us to tow the whole thing back to land and go back to the drawing board. So we didn't have the best start of this year.
How much time has been lost? Or how much time has been spent, I should say, in the beginning phase, the initial version that you launched versus where you're at now?
So we've been going on at this since 2013.
Oh, wow.
So
6 years.
So basically after 5 years, launching it and seeing it break into two, that wasn't the best start of the year I could have imagined. But then, went to the drawing board, and the team really took it well. We took those lessons into account, adjusted the design, and relaunched really just a few months later, so in June. And this time we made the system a bit more modular, so we could try different things to try and adjust the speed, make it go faster, make it go slower. And then what we figured was, well, the system isn't going fast enough. What if we actually turn the problem into a solution? What if we turn it around and actually slow it down so that it goes slower than the plastic? And then what we figured that actually works. And in October, we announced that we're actually catching plastic. And really just last week, the first 2 shipping containers full with plastic were landed in port.
Wow, so it's really recently up and running the way you expected it. Now, how long does it take to accumulate 2 shipping containers full?
So that was roughly month and a half.
And how big are these shipping containers?
20 foot, so probably 2 of these rooms.
So the only thing that's really stopping it from getting more is like the actual size of the net itself.
Yes, so that's the next step. So now that we kind of went from 0 to 1, we have the basic principle of catching plastic confirmed. We now have to make it bigger before we can build a whole fleet of them, because we reckon we need maybe 50 or 100 of them to really clean up half this patch in 5 years. That's the objective.
Half the whole patch in 5 years. That's the real objective?
That's what we want to do.
Wow, is that really possible?
If you have enough systems, yeah.
That's incredible. Now, where are you at in terms of like trying to get these systems made and implemented?
So now we just finished this first step with the system number 1. That's how we called it. And the next step is to develop what we call system 2, which is indeed going to be a bigger version. And the idea is to minimize the amount of vessel use that you need for it. So that comes because boats are really fucking expensive. The boat that we have costs roughly 15,000 euros per day to keep running.
Wow.
just one boat. So you don't want boats to,
Do you anticipate that it ever gets to a point where the amount of money that you can generate from the actual resource of physical plastic can actually pay for the whole experiment?
I mean, I hope so. That's what we want to trial next year with by making products from the catch that we make, and the material itself hardly has any value. It's really the story to it.
You should make straws so people don't feel guilty. They're like, no, it's a recycled straw.
Yeah. Then throw them in the ocean again.
No, that's a terrible idea. But what?
I mean, it would be a very sustainable business model. Just
keep going. Yeah. What is the what are the products that you're thinking about?
We have a few ideas. So it's still kind of under development. So I think in September we should be ready to launch the first one. But I think it's going to be things that are durable, that don't end up in waste, that will retain their value, so can last for a very, very long time, and that you actually want and ideally carry around so you can talk about with other people. And so just last week, with that first plastic on shore, we said, okay, now we welcome our supporters to actually make, I shouldn't call it a reservation, but kind of make a down payment. So that you can be first in line. So if people go to our website, they can actually put in the $50 and get the right for the first ever products made from the Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
So you're just trying to figure out what products will have the most sustainability, what products people will keep for the longest?
Yeah, and things that people want, right? You don't want some kind of gimmick that's just going to be this paperweight.
Flip-flops seem like an easy one, right?
Yeah.
Don't they? I mean, people love to buy flip-flops if they bought flip-flops. Especially people that are like sort of like outdoorsy type folks.
Sure.
Appreciate the beach.
And maybe I have to write these things down.
Flip-flops? That's a pretty easy one.
Any other ideas?
What else, Jamie? What else would be a good one? Belts. People like belts.
All shoes. Any flip-flop. All
shoes. Yeah,
shoes.
Like definitely some Yeezys. some dope recycled. Yeah, some recycled sneakers. Like, what is foam? Like the foam that they make running shoes out of. That's a very specific type of. That's not actual plastic, right? It's probably made out of something else.
It's a type of plastic. Yeah. We might be able to foam this material as well. I think we've done tests with that. Yeah.
Oh, really? Turn it into foam?
Yes.
Oh, through some sort of a process.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you could make athletic shoes. That'd be easy, right? But you'd have to have a way to incentivize people to recycle them. It would be so ironic if those fucking things wound up back in the ocean. There's got to be a way to do that. Just if you have your own company, like drop-off points in cities where when they're done with their stuff, if it's broken down or it's old, they've used it, you could throw it into this bin and you will ensure that it gets converted back into raw materials and utilized again.
Right, yeah, circular economy.
Yeah, that'd be a great move. And people would do that if you made it easy for them. It's sort of like recycling bins. If you make it easy for them, they'll throw their bottle in there.
Sure. Yeah.
So you have these two cargo ships or these two cargo containers filled with this plastic stuff. What do you do with it now?
Yeah, so now it's going to Europe. Unfortunately, there isn't really any useful recycling infrastructure in the U.S. So we set up this infrastructure in Europe to be able to first sort it and then shred it and then recycle it and then make those first products out of them. So hopefully with that then generate the cash needed to continue running the cleanup. And of course now it's still small scale.
Right.
Eventually we should have those number of shipping containers every day probably.
So do you have like a group of people that's trying to come up with ideas of what to make out of the plastic?
Yeah, so a little team inside the ocean cleanup working on that. And so I think they say that by September they should be ready to launch the first product. So
that's great, man. That's the whole idea behind it's beautiful. Don't you have a river system too as well, right?
Yes. So that's the other thing, right? So on one hand, we need to clean up what's running in the ocean. It doesn't go away by itself, and basically the only way to deal with that is to just go out there and clean it up. But of course, then there's this other side of the equation, which is there's still huge amounts of plastic flowing into the ocean every day, mostly from countries in Central America, Southeast Asia, where people are kind of this stage of development, or countries are at a stage of development where the people are wealthy enough to consume a lot of things that are wrapped in plastic, yet there isn't any waste infrastructure yet to take care of it. So you literally see people on scooters just drive to a bridge to dump their municipal waste into the river, because that's simply the easiest way to get rid of it.
Wow.
To your point, what's easiest, people will do. And so it's not really that people don't care there, or that they are less civilized or something, but it's really a combination. There's a lot of people, and there is no infrastructure that they can make use of. So then back in 2015, we were like, okay, maybe at some point in time this ocean thing will work out. Who knows? But then we're stuck with this problem that there's still so much plastic flowing in that we would just have to keep going forever. And that would just be not very motivating. And we want to be this project with a beginning and an end. So we're like, okay, so where's the plastic coming from? And then we figured, it's probably rivers. Rivers are like these arteries that carry the trash from land to sea, because when it rains, plastic washes from street to creek to river to ocean. And but then we found out that there is 100,000 rivers in the world. So that's kind of a big amount if you want to do something about it. So we started doing measurements in rivers, and then what we found was that just 1% of rivers are responsible for 80% of the pollution. So really just a very tiny amount of rivers, if you were to tackle those, could really address the majority of the plastic going into the ocean. And it's mostly like these relatively small rivers in capital cities like Manila, like Jakarta, like Kuala Lumpur. We have very high density of people. Near the coast, that's where most of the leakage, most of the emissions occurs. So since 2015, we've been kind of as a secret side project, been working on seeing, well, can we actually develop something to intercept the plastic in those rivers? And we just launched it a month ago. We call it the Interceptor. And it's this this scalable system that's almost like plug and play. So you bring it to a river and you install it, and it just works. It's fully autonomous, solar powered.
So this is all the real plastic that's being pulled out of this river from your machine.
Yeah, so
that's incredible.
This was the prototype.
Dude, that's amazing.
This was in Jakarta.
For people that are just listening, we're looking at this thing pull enormous amounts of plastic out of this river, and it's also doing so and they're stacking it into these bags. It's a large physical quantity of stuff.
Oh, yeah. And then maybe you can actually pull up the video of Interceptor 2 in Malaysia. So we already have 2 of them in real life as we speak.
How does it avoid doing anything with fish? How do you avoid accidentally? Oh my God, is that real?
Yeah. So this is the Klang River in Kuala Lumpur, and it's according to our model, it's like the 5th most polluting river in the world. So 1% of all plastic going into the world's oceans is coming from that one river. And
this is unbelievable how polluted this is. This is crazy.
It's 10 million kilos per year, roughly. So
just looking at it, it looks like a wasteland. It's so sad.
Yeah. So then we we now have 4 interceptors. 2 of them have already been deployed. So here's the one going to this Klang River, and kind of wanted to make it look like a spaceship, just so people would like it. And so it has this barrier that concentrates the plastic to the mouth of the interceptor, where you have a conveyor belt that then scoops it out of the water. Again, fully solar and battery powered, and then deposits it on to this moving shuttle conveyor, which then distributes it across these big dumpsters, can hold roughly 50 cubic meters of trash. And it just works by itself. So that's what it does. How much?
That's an insane amount of garbage that you're pulling out of there. When you look at it visually, folks, you can watch the video. What is the name of this video, Jamie, so people can find it? Rivers Interceptor 002 Cleaning in Malaysia is the title of the YouTube video. It's crazy. Now, and you're not catching any fish in this?
Oh, yeah. So because this barrier is non-permeable, the current just flows underneath it. Basically, the sea life can just pass it. Actually, at one point we had this giant lizard, which was probably 2 meters. We should probably post that photo. It was actually kind of climbing onto the barrier, and then it just swam around it. So
2 meters, really?
Yeah, or 1.5. It was.
What kind of lizard is that?
I don't know the name, but it was
Some kind of monitor or something?
monitor. That's
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have where's
Huge.
that? Do you see an image of that? No. Do
I'll
you?
post that next week.
Oh, you haven't posted it
No,
before?
no,
Oh,
no.
okay. He was looking for it.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying it was out there. So it's safe for fish. What about the stuff that doesn't float on the very surface?
Right. So the system goes down 1 meter. What we measured is that really almost all the plastic is in that top layer.
Okay.
So sure, it won't be 100% efficient, but I think it's really about having this pragmatic thing that catches most of it.
And most importantly, leaves wildlife alone because everything else can just swim underneath that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. And so this plan that you had when it's been 6 years running, how much of your daily time is devoted to this?
Oh, I don't think there's much free time at all. So, especially past year, I've not had a single free day. So
Not a single.
yeah, just 9 a.m. to usually 9 p.m. in the office. Just it's been busy, but I think it was worth it. Now looking where we were beginning of the year to where we're now.
Well,
Yeah.
now that you've actually pulled these cargo containers filled with plastic out of the ocean, that must give you an extreme feeling of satisfaction, right? That you've actually made it work. Like it's moving now.
So I was kind of hoping for that feeling, but then when you get to that point, you're like, okay, but there's still, you can really only see the amount of work that's still ahead of you. So it's actually really hard to kind of enjoy successes in a way. I should probably get better at that.
It's hard. Well, particularly what you're doing, you have a monumental task in front of you. And what you're doing is rightly being applauded by so many people, but I don't know how many people are actually helping you. You have a crazy thing that you're doing. You're trying to pull the plastic out of the ocean. When people find out about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, they get panicky. They're like, "What? How long has this been going on? How do I not know about this?" Because so few people. I mean, I would think like maybe 40% of the population understands that there's a gigantic patch of garbage in the middle of the ocean.
And it was discovered 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Exactly 20 years ago. And
That's crazy.
Still it's there, just been growing.
So 1998, no one had a goddamn clue.
Nope.
And then they went, "Wait, hey, what's going on out here?
Yeah.
What is all this garbage?" And it keeps getting bigger and bigger, right?
Yeah, it's actually quite a good story. This is this sailor called Charles Moore, who was participating in a sail race between Hawaii and California. And while others would go further north, he thought, well, let's try and cut off this piece. And then he was looking at the water, and he just saw all that trash. And then he went back. He was so shocked about it, and then he decided to take some measurements, publish the results, and that kind of popularized that whole concept of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
It's a weird thing to see when you see drones flying over it and you see the footage of it, and it's also it's a lot of it is a lot smaller than people think of it because it's broken down by the ocean, right?
Yeah, so that's what happens over time is that these larger objects have basically enters the ocean due to the working of the waves as well as the sun breaks down into these smaller and smaller pieces, which is actually not really a good thing because these smaller pieces are then easier to ingest for fish and other wildlife. So the smaller it gets, in a way, the more harmful it gets as well. And fortunately, what we see is that still 92% of the plastic is still non-microplastic, so big stuff. But of course, if we don't clean it up over the next few decades, all of that big stuff will also become microplastics, and then we're in a much worse state.
Is the cleanup of those microplastics possible, or is it just something that needs to be sort of rethought out?
Well, so that was actually one of the positive surprises that we had this year is that the cleanup system in the patch wasn't just catching plastic, not just the big stuff. It was also catching most of the microplastics. So down to 1 millimeter.
Gets, like, clogged up with all the other stuff. Is that what it is?
We're not exactly sure how it was able to do that, but we just saw huge amounts of those microplastics in the system. It probably has to do something with the radiation of the waves. So you have that big pipe that keeps the system together. And because waves are kind of crashing against it, it reflects waves as well. And almost like a lens, it was concentrating those microplastics into one patch in the middle of the system, which so it was kind of just holding on into the system. So that was really we weren't expecting to collect microplastics, but there we were.
That's pretty cool. So now, where are you at in terms of trying to expand it to a point where you could, really get this goal of half of the plastic of the ocean in 5 years?
Yeah. So it would probably be easier if we had one goal, but we now set two goals for ourselves. One is the 50% in 5 years for the patch, but the other one is that we want to have interceptors into the 1,000 most polluting rivers, the ones that do the 80%, in the next 5 years. So we'll be pretty busy. Yeah.
Really, really busy.
Yes.
As
so
if you're not busy enough.
Yeah.
How many people are working for in your organization?
Now about 100, and I think really the team has been is now better than it's ever been. So fortunately, there's definitely a lot of help, but we're still recruiting. Quite, I think, not another 20, 30 people coming half a year. So definitely there is a lot of work to do. And
what has this ride been like for you, from being